Is Prince Harry too toxic for the Invictus charity? Why did William and Catherine get wet today? What is the truth about the late Queen's political opinions? And what is the shock story from Camilla's childhood that has come to light? We have another very busy royal show for you this week. Hello and welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and back together for the first time in quite a few weeks. We have the Daily Mail's royal editor, Ms. Rebecca English, and the paper's diary editor, Mr. Richard Eden. Welcome to you both. I cannot wait to get your thoughts on so much royal news this week. Quick reminder that if you want more great royal news and views, there are two things you can do. One is to make sure that you subscribe to the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button for free to be notified whenever we put out a new show, like the special we did with royal author Valentine Lowe yesterday, and that will play straight after this if you did miss that. The other thing you need to do is sign up to the Palace Confidential newsletter. It is also free, and it features the likes of Rebecca here writing fascinating things every week. There's a QR code on your screen now, which you can scan using your phone's camera. It's oh so easy, and if you're watching on a phone, we'll put a link to that in the description below. Right, housekeeping done. To my panel now, and we started recording a little later than usual today because Rebecca was on an engagement with her best friend in the whole world, Queen Camilla. Rebecca, tell us what you were doing. What were you up to?
You're such a wind-up merchant, you are.
It's my hobby.
Now I'm back properly working. I was really keen to cover some of the engagements today because it's a busy day. So I've been down with Queen Camilla at the Dulwich Picture Gallery, opening this incredible sculpture and kind of art play area for the children, and she was on really good form and obviously clearly glad to be back. And there was quite a funny part, and hopefully you might see some video of it, where there was a big phone box, one of the classic red London phone boxes that Richard and I were probably old enough to remember kind of standing there as teenagers, reverse charge calling our parents to come and pick us up when we missed our curfew. But for these children this is a piece of history, and a museum piece, and they were look at it, and Camilla kind of went, let's see how many else we can fit in, can we? So all the kids were like, yay, and they all ran into it, and then she went, I think I might get in too.
Oh wow!
So there was a great kind of scene with her and the children posing in this phone box. Yeah, so it was a good start back to me for the Royal Autumn term.
Excellent. I love Dulwich Picture Gallery as well. It's a beautiful place.
It's
isn't it?
Definitely worth visiting.
I'm embarrassed to say I've never been. Actually.
Oh, Richard, well, come and have a cup of tea with me. It's my neck of the woods.
No,
and it's a really beautiful part of the world. So
now,
a beautiful part.
We'll come back to Camilla in a minute, but before then, I want to hear about William and Catherine, who were also out today. What were they up to?
Yep, it was their first engagement of the autumn term. Obviously, as their children have gone back to school, they were with some school children at the Natural History Museum in London, another fantastic place. Please don't tell me you've never visited the Natural History Museum.
No, I've been there lots of times. I love those dinosaurs.
Yeah, good. So they've transformed their gardens to kind of show people who are living in an urban environment how you can still get very in touch with nature. Unfortunately for them, the English weather is really got a few tricks up its sleeve today, because it's one of those days where it is brilliant sunshine one second and hammering it down the next.
The single most irritating feature of British weather. It's just pick a lane, British weather. Pick a lane.
And today there's no lane to be picked.
No.
So they arrived in sunshine, but unfortunately a lot of the engagement was outdoors today. And the heavens opened as they were trying to do pond dipping with these children in the end. I mean, they took it in their stride, they had the umbrellas up, but they had to go inside and do some more work inside the museum. But the kids still had a lovely time and they seemed to enjoy themselves.
And did they have the clear umbrellas that Queen Elizabeth always used to use?
No, they didn't actually. They had, normal umbrellas.
Oh, so. Poor form. Someone needs to sort that out.
Yeah.
The Fulton umbrellas, they're brilliant actually. I got given one and I can see why she liked them so much, because they're fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like a little cage around you. They're brilliant.
Right, well, Richard, obviously people love seeing these joint engagements, but there's fewer royals to go around these days, aren't they? They're not as common as maybe people would like.
I don't know. I mean, it's great fun, isn't it, when you see them on joint engagements? You can sort of see the body language, and they usually turn it into quite a fun day out, lots of joking. But to be honest, generally Catherine and William do separate engagements. They've got their own causes, whether it's the early years stuff in Catherine's case, or the Homewards, the homelessness project in William's. So they'll be doing lots of separate engagements as well. To be honest, I get the impression, because this is the sort of first engagement of the autumn season, it's kind of starting off together. So we'll be seeing lots of separate engagements as well.
And just to add to what Richard was saying, and the reason why you're absolutely right, it was the first engagement of the autumn season, but also, although it's Catherine who is patron of the Natural History Museum, obviously William, with his Earthshot Award, he's very concerned with environmental issues, so I think they thought it dovetailed really nicely for them as one to kind of kick that all off.
And of course, Natural History Museum is brilliant at getting children interested in the environment and showing that, you know, it can be fun.
Indeed. Well, if you like seeing the Waleses on joint engagements, you are in for a bit of a treat at the end of the programme, so do stick around for that. Now, Rebecca, the rest of the royal family are still holidaying in Scotland, but they do pop down here and there for things, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're starting to largely migrate back towards their own homes now.
They sound like a flock of birds migrating for the winter season.
They are, because, you know, it's not just holiday, actually, the whole court moves up to Balmoral, so, you know, it's the whole enterprise is up there. And as well as the Queen in London today, she was doing some military engagement yesterday and was in Cornwall the day before. And we saw the King on an amazing engagement in Birmingham on Wednesday, where he visited a hospital to open it. And there was a lovely moment, actually, when one of the sadly a man who's in the latter stages of prostate cancer, unfortunately, turned around and said, "And how are you?" And the King went, "I'm not doing too bad." You know, and that was positive. And there was a kind of fun moment. We were joking with another patient saying, you know, the trouble is I'm finding when you get to over 70, bits don't work as well as they used to. And he was telling a lady of 85 that he was kind of sharing in some of her gripes. So we're seeing, we've got big trips coming up very soon for the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, and we've obviously got President Trump's state visit, so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in September.
There certainly is. Let's move now to a book causing a bit of a stir in royal circles. There's been a couple recently. Valentine Lowe has written one called Power and the Palace, looking at the links between the royal family and politics, and we interviewed him this week, and that should play after this. But Richard, one that has caused a stir was over what the Queen's political views were.
Yeah, it's a bit of an old chestnut. I mean, one of the most wonderful things about Queen Elizabeth is people didn't know what her views were. And that was a great benefit to the monarchy, because someone who was a socialist or who was conservative could think that, you know, actually she really agrees with me, and they would never really know. Valentine Lowe is the respected former royal correspondent of the Times. I think he's retired from that now, but he's writing books. And in this one, he claims that Queen Elizabeth was actually pro-Remain in the Brexit referendum, i.e. she wanted Britain to stay in the European Union. Now, this is quite surprising, because at the time of the Brexit referendum, I remember a story on the front page of the Sun newspaper saying that she was actually pro-Brexit. Now, I think the source of that was Nick Clegg, the then Deputy Prime Minister. But now it's the opposite. So who knows? We will never know, because she's dead. So you can kind of say what you like, can't you, really? But who knows? I think the main argument sort of supporting his view is that generally she sort of supported the status quo. She wouldn't want anything too radical. There were lots of fears about the big changes that Brexit could bring.
Yeah, I mean, the quote attributed to her was "better the devil you know."
Yeah, I mean, my suspicion is that she was very careful about expressing her views one way or another.
Well, quite.
And so perhaps it's a question of people sort of hearing what they want to hear.
What do you think, Rebecca? I believe you're not so sure about this.
No, it's not that I'm so sure, because actually Val is a brilliant journalist I've known for years, and I think his book is incredibly well researched, and there's a lot of stuff that's on the record from people, which is quite rare when it comes to royal reporting, because people are obviously a little bit reticent about putting themselves out there. So it's not that, but I asked around a few people, because it was such a massive hot potato at the time. And the Sun actually got into trouble with the press regulator over their headline. The palace was so angry they complained, because they did a big headline saying, you know, Queen backs Brexit. And they actually got found against, because it said it didn't bear resemblance to the story. So I asked a few people and said, what do you think? And the response that came back to me is, you know, the Queen, for someone who was on the throne for 70 years, I mean, her discretion was, you know, unparalleled, I would say. It doesn't mean she didn't comment on things, but I think people respected her position so much, even if she did, they wouldn't divulge them. But they said, look, I think when she did say something on it, she was always so careful about what she said. You know, even her most senior courtiers didn't know her opinions on a lot of things. And when she did say something, sometimes it was almost like people holding up a mirror to themselves, that they interpreted what she said as a reflection of what their belief was, which is why I think we've got two such differing stories. One person said, no, she definitely backed Brexit, and the other people saying, no, she definitely was in favour of Remain. So they said, look, I wasn't in the room, so I can't tell you whether she did say that or not, but I think often these things are interpreted by people who want to push their version of events.
Indeed. Well, on to the present Queen now, Queen Camilla. And Richard, there's a rather shocking revelation about her in the book as well, isn't there? Yes,
this is something that came out. It came out actually via Boris Johnson, the former Prime Minister. It was something he'd told to his press spokesman, who had then told Valentine Lowe. You can see how these things get out. But what it was is that when she was a teenager, Queen Camilla had been a victim of an attempted sexual assault while travelling on a train, where a man had been sort of trying to touch her up intimately, and she had responded by doing something her mother had always encouraged her to do in such a situation, was quickly take off your shoe and whack him in a place that might hurt him. So apparently she did do that, and when she got off the train, she quickly said to a member of staff, you know, that man assaulted me, and according to the book, he was arrested.
Good.
So don't know much more than that, but it's an interesting story because we know that Queen Camilla has campaigned for victims of sexual violence, sexual assault, and so that kind of gives it a bit of interesting context as well.
Yes, it's a really serious subject, isn't it? And you know, you and I are talking about it being treated in some quarters as a bit flippantly, as a bit of a funny story. But it's what do you think it says about Camilla's character?
What I think it says about her is that she is pragmatic, and I made a point of speaking to a lot of people close to her when I knew this was going to be in the book, because I wouldn't want to upset someone who was entitled to anonymity by following it up. And I was told that while it's something she's never sought to make public, it is something she has discussed with family, friends, and actually some of the charities she's worked with on this issue over the years. So I think she was pragmatic about it, and if it was going to come out and it provoked a positive conversation about something a lot of women were over the years, have been subjected to, and young women still are, then that probably was a very good thing. And actually we saw headlines in the newspapers, we saw it on the kind of the lead news bulletins on television. So I think it probably was a good outcome. I just feel for her that it was put out there maybe without her point of view being taken into account.
Yeah. Richard, the book is fascinating overall, isn't it? Because it's the situation with our royal family and the constitution in Britain is so unique.
Yes, it is. I mean, because the book is about essentially the monarchy's relationship with politics, and it's a difficult role that's always open to interpretation as well. And it sparked a bit of a debate, actually. I've been following about, what rights a prime minister has to, what rights the king has, the monarch has to intervene. Some people were saying that Prince Charles, as he then was, because he would intervene a lot in terms of writing letters to ministers. They became known as the sort of Black Spider memos because of his handwriting, hard to read handwriting. But essentially he would intervene a lot, and some people were saying that wasn't right. But others were saying it's fine, and the monarch as well can advise, and the Queen can give her opinions, but ultimately it is the elected officials, the Prime Minister, who decides. But it's not spelt out in writing, that relationship, in the way that it is in some other countries.
Yeah.
So it depends on checks and balances.
Yeah.
But it's a very interesting and perhaps changing relationship.
Indeed, and if you do want to watch more about that book in the interview with Valentine Lowe, that will play straight after this episode. Let's turn to some of your comments now On the topic of whether the royal family should have to live in Buckingham Palace, Galen Miller says this: I really can't imagine why anyone would want to live at BP. That's what the insiders call it. Yes. It's certainly no place to raise children who need to run and tumble and play outdoors without tourists and guards gawking at them. It was fine during Queen Victoria's time, but life is much different now, and the royal family's decision on where they feel most comfortable to sleep and eat and relax should be respected. After Meghan Markle's comments about not being able to be as vocal as she'd like, Sarah Hansard said this: I'm glad Rebecca made the point that all of us who work for organisations are constrained in uttering controversial comments publicly. I was a journalist during my career, I'm now retired, and we were repeatedly told not to express our political opinions publicly since we were supposed to be impartial in our coverage. For Meghan to complain about that is ridiculous. And following on from our discussion of comments made by Meghan about the pantyhose she had to wear as a royal, Seeley writes with this spicy comment: was the pantyhose comment made by Meghan directed at Catherine and the tiff they had about bridesmaids' dresses and tights? Catherine wanted Charlotte to wear tights and Meghan wanted bare legs, so the bridesmaids didn't wear socks or tights and walk down the aisle with bare legs at Meghan's royal wedding. As Prince Harry prepares to return to the UK, Rebecca and I discussed last week whether he might meet the King, and lots of you were not in favour of that, including Helen Montgomery, who said, I think Charles should not meet with Harry, that would be a big mistake. Well, okay, we'll get Richard's view on that in just a moment. But let's bring my panel back now. Richard, you've been writing about Prince Harry's Invictus charity. And why some are saying that he should no longer be a part of it.
Yes, Invictus, after Centre Barley, is probably the cause closest to Harry's heart. We've often talked about it here. It's a great organisation which helps injured or sick former service men and women to compete in sports, in games, and it serves as an inspiration. But my article is about the fact I keep hearing more and more people associated with Invictus that think Harry is not the gift to the charity that he once was. So when he created Invictus, it was part of the Royal Foundation with William and Catherine. And at that point, it's brilliant for Harry to do. And anything associated with Harry was great. He's the most popular member of the royal family. It guaranteed positive publicity. But what we saw with Centre Barley and what we heard from its chairman, Sophie Chanduka, was that actually that's not the case anymore. She said that people didn't want to be associated and potential sponsors with Centre Barley anymore because they said, she claimed that Harry had become a toxic brand, same as Meghan. Now, I think Invictus is doing fine because it's a very worthy cause, but people are starting to say, is it great that it's so closely associated with Harry? It's well established. Do we need him anymore?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a military-focused organisation, and yet there are servicemen and women who seem to be unhappy with Harry's behaviour and, brand, I guess.
Well, that's what. Yeah, not revealing sources, but someone I spoke to was from the military, and there was so much disappointment with Harry over his portrayal, as they see it, of the royal family and things he said, that they really don't like him much anymore and they don't want him associated. Now, I'm not saying that's the case, for all military, but that's the way a lot of them feel. And Invictus is meant to be a really positive, inspiring organisation. So, some people are saying it might be better if it's not him. And the reason it's a big issue at the moment is because in 2 years' time, we've got an Invictus Games in Britain. Now, you would expect members of the royal family to be there, and they would want to be because it's such a good cause. But with Harry involved, it makes it very awkward and off-putting to them. So it's a tricky question.
It's an extraordinary situation, really, Rebecca, because obviously normally having a royal attached to a charity is a real mark of prestige. I mean, how often does that tip into being something quite opposite?
Well, we've seen it recently with Prince Andrew, of course, haven't we? Because when he was stripped of his patronages and associations, people were literally having to kind of scrub his name off the wall of plaques on the sides of buildings and off, their headed paper, because it was quite clear that his name had become so toxic that they didn't want to be associated with him. So there was a sense of relief in the charity community when that decision was kind of almost taken away from them, and the Queen said, no, you can't be associated with these organisations anymore. So yes, it is largely a blessing, but can also sometimes become a curse.
Do you think that he's a curse on Invictus, Harry?
I don't know is the honest answer. I don't think I'm qualified enough to say. I covered a few of the Invictus Games to start off with when he was a working member of the royal family, and when I did, he was incredibly popular. I mean, incredibly popular. There were people practically going down on their knees and thanking him for starting it. But I haven't covered the Invictus Games since he left as a member of the royal family, so I cannot tell you what the atmosphere is like now. But Richard is right to highlight it, because it is a real dilemma for the royal family. You know, the king is head of the armed forces, and it's inevitably something that you would see that he would be involved in when it came to the UK, but the family situation is such that it makes it very difficult. But we are still kind of 18 months, 2 years away, and a lot can happen between now and then.
I think Invictus is a brilliant organisation, really worthy cause. And I think if Harry genuinely cares about it, he should step back as patron. He could still support them and everything, but let maybe them get a new patron.
But I guess some people might argue that still, for him being the face of it, and actually that some people might think that would be damaging for him to step away from it.
I don't think it would. I think the charity is well established now, and I think it would probably, sorry, it sounds bad to say, but it would probably benefit from his departure in that sense, and it would certainly make the event, when it comes to Britain, bigger. They'll be queuing up. I'm sure there'll be, the king or senior members of the royal family would want to attend in the same way that they do when it's the Olympics or the Commonwealth Games.
Can you see that happening, Rebecca? Harry stepping away from the charity?
I think it's unlikely personally, because he was there from the start. He's incredibly passionate about it, and I think it also gives him some validity as well, because it's one of those organisations he's been involved with that is truly still a success story. So I think it's very tied up with who he is as a person and where he might see himself going forward. So personally, I think it's unlikely. But as I said, I genuinely don't know enough about the situation to feel confident commenting much more than that.
Fair enough. Well, you can read more of Richard's thoughts on this online, and we'll put a link to that in the description below. Meanwhile, Harry is due back in the UK very soon. The focus of attention has turned to whether he might see his father for the first time in around 2 years. Rebecca and I discussed it last week, but you weren't here. We didn't get your thoughts, Richard.
No. Well, I'm not one to tell His Majesty whether to see his son or not, but all I would say is urge a note of caution. Just look at Harry and Meghan's recent actions. So the last time we saw Harry was giving an extremely bad-tempered, I would say bitter interview to the BBC, where he was alleging an establishment stitch-up, which is why he lost his appeal, his court case over security. He was speculating about how long his father had to live. When was the last time we saw Meghan? She was giving an interview to promote her new series of her TV show, and in it, again, she was harking back to the royal family. She was saying how she was constrained by their traditions. She had to wear tights or pantyhose, as Americans say. You know, that's something we discussed actually on a Reading the Royals episode.
Right.
But you know, my point is that any chance they get, they're talking about the royal family, in a negative way.
Yeah.
So does the king really want to meet him and then give him more ammunition? Who knows what he'll do. But please, if he does meet him, make sure that he's not just going to repeat it all in his next show or TV programme.
It is true that you just never know what he's going to do you? It's crazy.
Well, I think we know that he's going to moan. We know he's going to groan. And we know that Meghan's going to try to make money.
Okay.
So in light of those
I stand corrected.
What I would say again, do what he did last time when he came over. He rushed over when he heard that his father had cancer, and the king made sure that Queen Camilla stayed in the room with him as well. So at least he had another witness.
You've got a witness
to everything said.
Let's have a quick word, Rebecca, on a new social media post put out from Meghan Markle, and her children appeared. What did you make of that?
Yes, I don't think people.
That was a grimace.
Well, again, I think this kind of is another aspect to what Richard was touching upon. So we've seen the new series of With Love, Meghan drop on Netflix. I think it's crept into the top 10 in a few countries around the world very briefly, but I think it's largely considered by industry experts to be a bit of a flop. The reviews have not been universally approving of it.
No, we discussed that, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
It's been pretty critically panned. And of course, a few days later, she suddenly posts on Instagram a series of pictures of her children, Archie and Lilibet, on the set of the show. And it hasn't been very well received because it seems a bit of using her children in a kind of desperate attempt to kind of ramp up interest in the programme again. And again, a lot of commentary about how she's using her children for commercial purposes. We don't see their faces, of course. Their heads are always artfully turned away from the camera. There is a picture of Prince Archie looking face on, but he has a little kind of grey love heart to cover his features, but obviously you can see the children's kind of beautiful red hair. But again, there's a strong sense of people feeling quite uncomfortable that she's using these children to kind of shore up her kind of ailing commercial ventures. And I think people don't feel comfortable about it.
Imagine how the children's grandparents must feel. So you've got King Charles, who has barely met them. Then you've got her...
Has he met them?
Yes, once or twice.
Yeah, once in Lilibet's case.
In the case of Meghan's father, Thomas Markle, he's never met the children at all. And indeed, he's never even met her husband, Prince Harry. So imagine what that's like, to see them paraded for commercial purposes when they're not allowed to see their family. You know, it's an extraordinary situation, I would say.
I guess she would probably argue that, you know, in her new life where she's allowed to be her authentic self, it's all part of her brand, sort of like bringing you into her world. I guess her fans probably love it.
Yeah, and I think I've harked back to this a couple of times because I do think it was quite interesting about her state of mind over these things. In one of the interviews she gave, she made a point of saying, you know, one of the things she hated about the British media and being a member of the royal family was having to, for example, stand on the steps of a hospital and show your beautiful new baby to the world, or to share pictures of them on milestone birthdays. And she was saying, just because, you know, it's like having a co-worker at a desk, you've got a picture of a child on your desk, and they're saying, because I can see that one picture, I want to see every picture you got of your child on your phone, which I've always thought was the strangest example to give, because we don't see the children at every opportunity. They're not photographed on the school runs. It's very much within the choice of the Waleses, for example, what photographs they do choose to share of their children. So I've never really understood that analogy, but I think it's this sense of the power that she can choose to use these photographs if she wants. But as I say, to talk about privacy, but to use these in a commercial sense in the other, I think people don't agree with it.
Well, coming up next week here on the channel is a new show that sees Rebecca here and I getting out of the studio. They never let us out.
More fool them, and they won't be doing it again in a hurry.
Check it out. So let's start walking on this royal walk. Now, it's an absolutely beautiful day in London. We're being very, very spoiled. So tell us, what do you think we're going to see?
Where we're walking now is Birdcage Walk. Now, this is so named because James I in the 17th century, he had a huge menagerie in Avery.
Are you going to have facts?
I'm going to have facts.
This is amazing. Yeah.
He had an aviary and a menagerie, and the aviaries were all down here, so this is why it's named Birdcage Walk.
Right.
And until the 1800s, only the royal family and the hereditary Grand Falconer were actually allowed to even go down this road. It was cut off to the public.
Can you just say that name to me again? The hereditary what?
Oh, Joe, don't do that to me.
The hereditary what now?
Grand Falconer.
Okay.
They don't have falconers in the royal family anymore, though. And obviously, given its avian history, there are still some exotic birds in this park now.
Thank you very much. Sorry. I'll be here all week. Oh, we did have fun filming that, didn't we?
It was a really, really good morning.
I really can't wait for you all to see it. So do keep an eye out for Royal Walks next week, only on the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel. If you want to make sure you don't miss it, do hit that subscribe button to get notified when it's live. With William and Catherine on that charming joint engagement today, we thought we'd pull together some of our favourite pictures of the pair on joint work events for one of our world-famous montages. isn't it? A reminder that our interview with Valentine Lowe talking about his new book will play next, so click here for that. To never miss another royal show that we put out, and as I just mentioned, we've got some great ones coming up. Do make sure that you hit subscribe on the Daily Mail Royals YouTube channel. Just time now to say thanks to Rebecca and to Richard and to you, of course, for watching. We will see you next week. Bye-bye.